Good afternoon. I'm Sophia Arriola from the New York Times. Today we are going to interview Mr. Robert CAPA, who is the most famous and influential photographer of the 20th century, and well recognized for his fascinating captures of war.
Thanks for having me here. I'm glad you chose me.
You take an unusual kind of photos, which could not be taken by someone else. When did you know you were passionate about it?
Well, I was not passionate about photography at first. It was a need. My passion was the literature, but I had to quit because after my family lost their economic status, working as a photographer was the only viable way to survive, as it was my only income. However, I started to like it a lot. It has given me all I have.
You had to make a living for your own. Being so young, as your family sent you out of Hungary, your homeland, why did your family have to take that decision, knowing that it would be very difficult for you?
It was a decision made for me to be safe. After participating in a local protest against the regime, when I was 16 years old, I was captured and punched by the police. Even though all my family was living in Budapest, it was not an option for me anymore. That's why I had to travel to Berlin, where I studied political science while working as a magazine printer.
Your cunning and self-determination are some of the attributes that have positioned you as one of the best photographers. That's why I would like to know which was your first task as a photographer.
That's a good story. Well, there was going to be a meeting in Copenhagen, Denmark, in which Leon Trotsky, the Russian politician recently exiled from the Soviet Union, will give a speech. Therefore, my boss wanted me to enter discreetly and take him a photo. I'm really surprised I succeeded, because even though it was impossible to get a shot of the Soviet revolutionary, I managed to get dressed up, disguising myself as one of the workers' assistants, and achieve my objective.
You're known as Robert CAPA, but your real name is Andre Friedman. I wonder why you decided to use this as your pseudonym.
In the 30s, it would be difficult for an unknown Hungarian to draw the attention from the French newspapers. For this reason, my dear Arriola helped me to invent this character named Robert CAPA, an American famous photographer just arriving to Paris, which was just for both of us. It successfully worked out and accompanied me for the rest of my life.
It is said that this fabricated personality contrasted until the end with the realism of your work as a photographer. What's the reason about that?
Nice question. Well, CAPA means shark in Hungarian, and this attribute it to me because of my ability and speed to present myself in the moment and achieve interesting and difficult captures. Likewise, the name sounds familiar to the one of the film director Frank Capra, which also helped me to sound American.
Wow. Which is your strategy to take good photos?
Unlike most of my colleagues, I used to cover the action from the trenches of the war, because as I always say, if your photos are not good enough, it's because you are not close enough.
Interesting. So, Gerda Taro was more than your companion. She was your professional photographer partner. Am I right?
You're right. When she moved to Paris in 1934 to escape the anti-Semitism of Hitler's Germany, we met each other and we fell in love. In fact, she learned photography with me and became my personal assistant.
This might be too intimate. It's okay if you don't want me to answer. What happened with Gerda Taro?
Gerda, my life and action partner, died while photographing a battle on July 25th in 1937. It was the first death of a correspondent in combat.
I'm sorry to hear that, Mr. CAPA. Well, continuing with the interview, we have seen so many of your incredible pictures taken, literally, in war. What's the hardest photo you have ever taken?
That's hard to decide. All of them had traits and difficulty and needed bravery and cleverness. If I had to choose one, it would be the ones taken in the Normandy landings, or D-Day, in 1944, date which defined the future of the Second World War. Although 12 photographers were accredited to report the battle, only 4 of us will be present during the invasion. It was the only member of the team who could take the rolls of photos. I took over 100 that day, but unfortunately only 11 could be rescued. That was because we didn't have to worry just about surviving. The time was a factor too, as we had to send the content so it could be published in the Life magazine. After all, it was worth it. It was clearly a success.
As you may know, there's another photo which surprised the world. Its name is Loyalist Militian at the Moment of Death, Cerro Muriano. Could you tell us the story about this picture?
I remember the exact date in which it was taken, September 5th, 1936. I captured the moment of death of the Spanish soldier Federico Borrell Garcia. It showed the war's rawness and the Republic's fall. As I said, I just positioned the camera above my head and shoot it. And when I came back, I became a famous photographer.
You founded the Magnum Photos Agency in 1947, in which you created the basis of the modern periodism. How would you describe these principles?
I'll describe them as a mix of styles in which the documental and artistic style are alternated, creating a unique way to present information and tell stories.
Why did you came back to take photos in war if you had sworn not to do it again?
The reason why I returned to the war was because in the year of 1950, if I'm not mistaken, during an exhibition of Magnum, John Maurice, my former editor of Life, proposed me to cover the Indochina War from a financial reward of $2,000, and it was something I could not refuse.
Well, I have to tell you something. I love art and literature, and one of my favorite writers is Ernest Hemingway. I know you met him, right?
Yes, I met him once, as well as Picasso and some other recognized people, because they wanted me to portray them. I remember talking a little with them, and I could say that they are great people. If Hemingway asked for my services again, I will surely call you.
I really appreciate that. Besides photography, have you worked out in other disciplines?
Of course I have. As you may know, I love literature, so I had better write some books. I collaborated in the books A Russian Journal and Report on Israel, and I also wrote my own book titled Slightly Out of Focus in 1947.
Well, last question, Mr. CAPA. It might be an unanswerable question for you, but let's try it anyway.
Okay.
How did you die?
When I decided to come back to a war in 1950, I couldn't reject the $2,000 offer to do so, but I didn't know it was the last one. In the first Indochina War, I stepped on a mine while taking photos and died before arriving at the hospital. After my death, my brother Colonel CAPA founded in 1974 the International Center of Photography to preserve my legacy.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. CAPA, and you for watching this interview. We hope you enjoy it. Thank you.